James Mullholland walks his own meadow, land his people have farmed for generations. From Killishandra and Butler's Bridge to Lispellaw and Enniskillen, the map of Ireland is a filigree pattern of blues and greens, as whorled and as intricate as any design in the Book of Kells. Blue for lake, green for deep meadow, a dreaming, sighing land. Until northeast of Lisnaskea, the colour changes to brown. The Fermanagh countryside rises into rough moorland. This is Eishbrally Mountain. There were 10 children in the Mullholland family. 4 of them went out into the big world. An exact way to describe leaving a place so blessedly secluded and so self-contained. 6 stayed in the home place. 4 brothers, Daniel, the youngest, Frank, James and John. 2 sisters, Mary and Margaret. Strong, quiet people whose hearts are bound closely to the homestead, the land around it, and the fruits of that land, which are not, as you will see, confined absolutely to the conventional farm produce. Self-containment, self-sufficiency are 2 of the chief marks of the Mullholland farm, their own poultry and cattle, butter, eggs, turf. Sister Mary steps out to fill the food trough for the free-roaming hens, whose eggs always seem to have a better flavour than those of the regimented modern birds. No glittering newfangled machinery here, nor is the absence felt as any deprivation. Fine flocks of geese and a pet of a gander feeding out of a pot are rare sights nowadays anywhere in rural Ireland. And after the milking, the cows go lazily back to pasture. Frank Mullholland standing there, Dan following the cattle along a lane secretly curtained and perfumed with bushes and brambles, a place for children to play at outlaws and pirates, the haunted country lane of everyone's childhood. And good currant bread and home-churned butter with beads of crystal bubbles glimmering on it were all part of that rural childhood if you were country-reared or lucky enough to have relations in rural places. Butter may still be the cream, as we are told so often, but butter made in the old way in the home dairy or the spotless farm kitchen was the creme de la creme. The churn that Mary Mullholland uses is in the family for a century. Think of all those churnings and rinsings and scaldings and coolings to guarantee the purity and the flavour of the butter. She handles the dash and the joggle with an ease and skill that is instinctive, at least inherited. This is how she saw her mother do it, how her mother saw her mother do it. And every expert woman at the churn, like every good ballad singer, develops special personal skills, little touches, variations, grace notes. Carefully she scalds the colander, collects the floating butter, drains off the buttermilk, washes the butter with clear spring water, molds the fragments into unity with the joggle, uses a scallop shell in the salting, the sea the shell came from, is only a step west over there, beyond the reaches of the Erne. Mary shapes the pats of butter by hand on a breadboard. No fancy ornamented paddles here, but the clean shape of the pure butter, in the style of those great rugby footballs of butter that even in English-speaking districts were known as miscones. From the fresh churn to the flaming forge would seem a long journey anywhere, but here on Eschbrally you can make it in a minute. Frank said they never bought 100 of coal in their lives, except the exception meant for the forge. Not a customary piece of equipment on every Ulster farm, but here it is, you might say, the heart of the matter. For first and foremost, the Mullholland men are stone cutters, and have been so for a long time. James Mullholland delicately draws out the point of a punch so that it can mark the pliable stone as exactly as a pen. Frank at the forge works the circular fan, tempering the heat to suit the nature of the metal they are using. A different heat molds a different metal, and they pick up their raw material anywhere. Scraps, bits of an old disbanded automobile, nothing goes to waste. Through fire and water, dull, lifeless metal is transmuted into the sharp edge that will master the stone. There's fine bread that you might say can speak for itself, and it's enjoyed here with strong, fragrant tea by the family getting ready for the day's work. The breakfast table is a good place for thinking and planning, each one to his or her own particular task. From the morning outside come the farmyard noises, sinking back into the peace of the countryside. When the farm chores are done and the tea taken, it's away to the quarry across 1.5 miles of meadow and moorland. There is something special about this walk, and the dogs, as they race ahead of Frank, John and Dan, seem to know it. The Mullholland quarry, in use for 1.5 centuries. Ferns grow out of a crevice in the soft sandstone. Tennysons flower in the crannied wall. Tadpoles live in the quarry pool. Jem Mullholland, the grandfather, worked this quarry, walking from the homestead along the same field path, the ancestors of those dogs, more than likely, dancing around him. The narrow plank bridge sways beneath the men as they step into what you might call their studio, a pocket of sandstone on the fringe of the Erne Basin, which is composed mainly of limestone. With the delicate punch, the stone is bottomed. Holes are made to take the metal wedges. Fragments or spoil, the local name is scablings, are swept away. The stone opens, it would seem easily and evenly, like slicing bread. That, I suspect, is why it takes 8 or 10 years to learn the craft, one of the oldest practiced by civilized man. No young lads learning the job nowadays, John says. It takes too long to learn and the future is too chancy. I left school at 12, Frank says. There was the farm and the quarry. At that early age, he started at the making of the scythe stones. At that time, there were 10 or 15 men working at the stones. Against the spread of antiquity, not to talk of evolution, it seems trivial to talk in terms of centuries. But Frank Mullholland can talk of quarries in this locality that have been worked for 400 years and have sent stone, as he puts it, to the building of cathedrals. Then it's back across the bending plank bridge. The stone is on its way to the banker, the stonemason's name for the support the stone is placed on to work it. On the banker, the stone is scribed, to draw lines on it, in fact, as in the Latin, to write on it, with the long punch. They cinder the stone, which is the twist the Ulster accent gives to sunder. The blocking hammer roughly shapes the stone, and out of the oblong block, the fish-like shape of the whetstone emerges. The Greeks saw their statues in blocks of marble long before chisels were put to them. John takes over now. The whetstone is held in position in a trough. When John Mullholland started to work, the whetstone sold at 2 shillings a dozen. Now it's £6 a dozen. But tobacco was then 8p an ounce in old money. Now it is 62 pence. That's how the world changes. One year, Frank and his father made 1,700 scythe stones, and some of those stones were sent as far away as the USA. They worked by lamplight in the winter evenings. It must have been a grand sight, the lamps dotted around the quarry and the tap, tap, tapping, chip, chip, chipping of the hammers. That preliminary smoothing by the claw chisel is the one concession to modernity or factory-made tools. The wooden mallet is made from Ulster crabapple. The final scraping and shaping at the wooden stake is done by a scythe blade. Those stones will sharpen many a scythe. Once they made millstones, but now all the old mill wheels are gone in this new ersatz world. But the whetstones and the grindstones and the crazy paving are still in demand. Across the mountain from over by 5 Mile Town and Grogie comes Tom McCaffrey to buy a whetstone.
Hello, Mr. Mullholland.
Hi, how are you, Tommy?
Not so bad at all, now.
Yeah, well.
Not bad at all.
That shower this well, isn't it?
Aye, this is a bit broken now.
Aye, just. It might seem man up
I
again.
don't believe now we're going to have a lot of rain.
They might not, no.
No, they may not now. Well, you are still working at the side stones?
Aye, we do a little at it all the time too, and more on that crazy work or building work.
Yeah, so we're seeing it.
Aye.
I suppose you would have one to spare now, or...
Aye, well, we'll wait. I'd have one to spare, aye.
Well, that would be okay now, for I could be doing with one.
Aye, I'll get you one. All right, wet now.
Decent man now. Thank you now, that'll do my
I'll
job.
have put on some edge for you.
That'll do my job. It's something that I just need now.
Aye, surely. We'll do you this sale.
It's coming into this time of year that these are needed, you know.
But they don't go wrong. You can sharpen knives on even they don't be sharp on a side.
Oh yes, that's right. They're great. They can sharpen many a tool for
they can that side. Very useful.
Very, very useful article now. How much is that?
50 pence, Tom.
Oh well, it's not breaking man not if a man would happen to have it.
You have some anyway, sir.
I suppose. Will that near meet it?
Right, thank you, boss.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And for Tom, it's back to Grogie and Coonin, once famous for its ghost, the only Irish ghost that ever emigrated, but that's another story. From the tea break, under that roof of scraws and heather, and with the echoes of music and talk in his ears, Frank looks down on his countryside, one of those deep-hedged, slumbrous valleys that give that area and the Clogher Valley a very special quality. Here is the spélador, the mower, the sound of whose scythe is heard whistling in Gaelic poetry, and for that matter in the poetry of every language man in grasslands has ever spoken. Once men walked miles over the mountain by borings and field paths to gather for the hunt. There's hardly a house on the moor or in the valley that has not at least 2 hounds to hunt the hares and the foxes. At this time of year, the hounds are kept carefully on the lead to protect the young hares from over-enthusiastic and unplanned pursuits. That horn of clear voice is well known in these hills. It was fashioned by Dan's grandfather, Jem Mullholland. The hunt is still the same as in the days of Finn and his Fenians. When the saga tells us, they followed the hunt in one day from Slieve Trim, on one side of what is known as Tyrone, to the shores of Loch Ness on the other side.
But still it pictures in my mind like memories, thoughts and dreams. When I think of the charming girl I loved and oft-times called her mine, no wonder that my heart still breaks for the home that I left behind.